we're doing homesickness on this session, right? So this is a section that usually throws out a lot of like what if questions. Like if we talk about the angry homesick camper, then you'll be like, well, what if they're acting like this? Feel free to interrupt at any time with any kind of questions. I would love to try to answer them as best as I can. So just public survey. Raise your hand if you've ever experienced homesickness while in college. At all. Yeah. A lot of people, me included. What did you miss most about home when you were feeling homesick?
Food.
Family, food,
Free laundry.
free laundry. That's I feel that.
Not paying for soap.
Yep.
My own room.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All great answers.
Support.
How often do you guys go home?
Every week.
Every week. Especially when you were feeling homesick. How?
Once a month, yeah.
Once a month.
I did.
How often did you go home your freshman year?
I went home
Never.
freshman year a lot.
Wait,
Every
what?
Yeah. How often did you call home? How often did you call your parents and stuff?
Every day.
Yeah.
How often?
Yeah.
Like 6 times a day.
Yeah. Cool. So how have you guys personally dealt with homesickness?
Talk to friends.
Talk to friends?
Go and do something.
Go to do something?
Get distracted.
Oh, yeah.
Go home? What was that?
Get distracted from it.
Yeah. Cool. And as time goes on, do you guys feel like you get less homesick about it? Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of people do. But I think that people really only stop being homesick because they learn like different ways to cope with it, and they have like support in their friends and everything out here. You know, if you were all alone away from home, then I imagine that the homesickness would persist pretty strongly. Which we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. What's similar to being homesick at college and being homesick at camp? What's similar and different about it?
At camp, you can't call your parents.
Yeah, that's a big rule we have. You can never tell a camper either and be like, okay, well, we can call home a little bit later. We don't call home unless it's like a last case.
A lot of kids at camp, it's their first time being away from home, where at college it's definitely not for most people.
Yeah.
So yet, like, I've never been away from my parents before. I've never been away from my dog before. Where at college it's like, oh, I've been this way, but it's still not.
Yeah, especially in our yellow people. You know, it's their first time at camp. What else is similar and different about college and camp, being away from home?
I guess similar, you both have like support system and
Mm-hmm.
ways to become distracted.
Yeah.
It might be a different scenario where the kids are more worried about like how their parents are doing
Yeah,
rather than just being like homesick or
that's true. Another thing that's similar is that going off to college and going off to camp, you're not really 100% sure what to expect. You know, it's something that's new and different, and you're not waking up and going to bed in the same place that you've been for a long time. Cool. So, just from you guys, what do you think homesickness really is? Can I give some ideas on what you guys think it is?
Not being comfortable where you're at.
Not being comfortable where you're at. What else?
I guess it means being uncomfortable, but being really outside your daily routine.
Yeah.
It's like just not around what you're used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being out of your normal zone. The great Dr. Chris Thurber, who does a lot of our EOT videos, if you guys have watched them.
Oh god.
Greatest man in the whole world. Defines. Sorry, hold on. I'm still sick from finals. I haven't recovered. Homesickness is distress or impairment caused by an actual or anticipated separation from home. Homesickness is characterized by acute longing and preoccupying thoughts of home and attachment objects, i.e., parents, pets, or friends. Different people miss different things about home, really anything that is familiar. Which is a very doctor way of saying that. Acute longing, preoccupying thoughts. But basically just takeaway is that it's the actual missing, or it's also the anticipated missing, so people can feel homesick even before they leave off. You know, some people get scared before they go off to college, or before they go off to camp. So now we're gonna. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to read through this list, so just bear with me. But we're gonna talk about some facts and myths of homesickness. So I'm gonna say the statement, and then you guys are gonna guess whether or not it's a fact or a myth. Okay? So homesickness only occurs in our youngest campers. Myth. Yeah, happens universally to all ages through adulthood. Why is this a myth? We only look for behavior or expressions in our young campers because we don't expect older kids and adults to suffer from homesick feelings. We often misinterpret what their behavior is saying. So if a kid is acting out, you might be like, oh, well, he's just mad, but he might be homesick. He might be acting out. All right. More than 95% of campers report some feeling of homesickness during their stay at camp. Myth or fact?
Fact.
Fact. That's a fact. Underneath it, it just says fact. It's normal. Moving on. Symptoms of homesickness always include some sort of severe depression or anxiety. Myth. Yeah. Only 7% of campers report these feelings along with their homesickness. Symptoms can include, but are not limited to, depression, anxiety, withdrawn behavior, embarrassment, denial, somatic complaints. Somebody tell me what somatic complaints means.
Explain about everything.
Huh?
Wait, what's somatic?
Somatic.
Can you spell it, please?
Can you use it in a sentence? SOMATIC. Is
So like complain about the environment around them.
that what it is?
Oh, that's what I'm assuming.
Wait.
I'm actually
know?
asking. I really have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, like somatic is outside, so
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be like projecting anger or aggression or
Or just
sadness.
complaining.
Or complaining, or like blaming it on like, well, I don't like this campsite.
Uh-huh.
Like,
I can see that. The only time I've ever heard the word somatic used is when talking about the nervous system. So
Yeah.
that's all right. Acting out behaviors are rarely a symptom of homesickness. However, most feelings of homesickness go undetected and therefore unprocessed. Not all homesick children look homesick. All right. Fact or myth? The most severe cases of homesickness happen in the first few days. Myth. Research shows that campers that struggle with homesickness and do not get help increase their feelings of anxiety, depression, etc. until going home is imminent. Why do we think that homesickness only happens in the first few days? Because that's when we catch it. But we should be on the lookout all session long. Always be looking for it. Children are more likely to get homesick if they have little previous separation experience and have no previous experiences at camp. Fact or myth? Would you guys like me to repeat that one?
Like it seemed like one
I'm
sentence.
trying to barrel through this. Children are more likely to get homesick if they have little previous separation experience and have no previous experience at camp. That's a fact. Why? Experience, knowledge, membership, etc. creates comfort and stability. So if you make a group of friends, if you know what you're going to expect at camp, like there's going to be an empowerment ceremony, there's going to be cabin chats, you're going to be more familiar and hence less homesick. All right, fact or myth? This one's kind of long-winded. Children are less likely to get homesick if they perceive low control over their own emotions, are anxious or depressed in the months before camp, and are insecurely attached, i.e. they are unsure whether their caregivers will give them love when they need it. Did anybody understand that?
Can we read that paragraph, please?
Can you just read like the first
Yeah.
first part, yeah.
Man, Chris Thurbert, what did I talk to everyone?
Chris.
Take it down for me. All right.
It's scoop.
Children are less likely to get homesick if they perceive low control over their own emotions, are anxious or depressed in the months before camp, and are insecurely attached, i.e. they are unsure whether their caregivers will give them love when they need it.
Fact. Less fact. No, would it be more likely?
Oh, more likely?
Oh.
Is that what it said?
It says
Is it fact or myth?
That's a myth.
It's a myth.
It's a myth.
Okay, so that's simple.
If they have other issues going on in their lives or personality, it is easier to slip into feelings of homesickness. That's the takeaway. Man, that one was just a monster of a sentence. Yeah. In the question. Makes it a little more fun though. It's not like you guys are just, like you guys are sitting there trying to actually
I
think.
feel like it's like when you're BSing an essay the night before, just when there's many
Uh-huh.
We'll just leave.
Like it's 15 hours.
All right. Children are more likely to get homesick if they feel forced to come to camp, if their parents express doubt or anxiety about them going to camp, or if there is something about their home situation that makes them worried, such as an upcoming move or divorce. Fact. He goes, why is this important? What can you do about it? Nothing, but this gives you the reason to ask. Why? Children are more likely to get homesick if they have low expectations of camp, believe their homesickness will be strong, and have a negative first impression of camp. What do you guys think? Seeing a lot of people not answer because they're unsure.
I didn't get the question.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Children are more likely to get homesick if they have low expectations of camp, believe their homesickness will be strong, and have a negative first impression of camp.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a fact. Cool. So, now we're going to talk about the 3 general types of homesick campers. Because homesickness is so prevalent, we talked about this a second ago, like all of you guys raised your hand when you said that you had felt homesick at college. Because it's so prevalent, it shows its symptoms in a lot of different ways. So the first one that it has is the angry homesick camper, which I'm sure that you guys can kind of imagine. Frustration aimed at you and the other campers or counselors. Everything is stupid or won't be fun. Intentionally disobeying rules. That everyone is against me mindset. Something to think about this kind of camper is that the overabundance of rules can increase this problem. So if you're playing a game and he's like wants to step outside the lines and you're like, hey, you need to step inside the lines, and then you like give him another rule, like, okay, well now you got to step inside this line so that you can get close to that. Like, if you add more rules, it's just going to make it worse for this kind of camper. They're going to be more mad. The next one is the bored homesick camper. These ones are the ones that are generally only found in the first few days of camp, feeling bored, withdrawn from the cabin and others. They're generally alone in a first-time camper. And one thing that helps out with this kind is activities drastically increase this mood. So if you play a game or something with all of them, then this person will be a lot more likely to kind of come out of their homesickness. It's like distractions that we talked about earlier. The last one is the sad homesick camper. They are genuinely missing home and parents, siblings, pets. They don't put forth any effort to get to know any other people. They're very quiet, always thinking about home. They're always asking to call home for no particular reason. And these are generally the kids who follow all of the rules. So rule abundancy really not a big deal because they don't want to make anyone upset. They're just feeling sad. We'll talk about ways that we can deal with all of these in a sec. So what I want you guys to do is we're going to split off into 2 groups again, but this time we're going to split off onto each side of the whiteboard so that our computer can still see all of this. So let's erase this bad boy. So now I'm going to do number 1. I want you guys to talk about prevention, how you guys can prevent feelings of homesickness. Okay.
Make them feel.
Okay. So you guys have 2. So you guys are going to talk about interventions. So ways that you can kind of intervene when people are already feeling homesick, and ways that you can help them out. All right. Let's discuss prevention. Let's hear it.
Okay. Who wants to discuss this? I wrote it.
Let's hear Mad Hatter.
Involvement. So you're gonna be involved with the kids always from like day one. Always seeing how they're doing all that. And then distractions, always keep them going, distract them from being homesick. And then encouragement, encourage them to just have fun, be a kid again. That's the whole point of Kessel too. And then positive attitude / tone, you always want to be positive. Because if you're gonna be down, they're gonna be down, and it's gonna possibly move into homesickness. And then obviously avoid talking about home. Don't bring it up in general unless they bring it up first.
Yeah.
And then fun from day one, and then just being present and how they're doing.
Cool. That's all great. Let's hear about some interventions.
Questions like if they're already in the state.
Cool. Great. So there's like a huge laundry list of techniques on here, and I'm just going to pick out the ones that are, I think, really important. So in back to prevention, one of the important ones is to be sincere. Campers can tell when you truly care about them. And you guys definitely were in on that with positive attitude, encouragement, all that stuff. Let the campers know you will be there for them, and do not make promises that you cannot keep. So don't be like, yeah, no, for sure, we'll call home if you like really need it later on, like, because we don't do that, right? This one says, orient and welcome. Orienting your campers begins before camp starts with a phone call from a leader, a camp brochure or DVD, or other materials detailing daily camp life. Before your campers arrive, memorize their names. This will make them feel welcome and, you guessed it, at home. To make campers feel even more at home, help them customize their bunk with a name card. Maintain close contact with campers during the first day. You are their substitute parent. So this kind of talks about when, in the facts and myths, it said if they were unsure of what to expect at camp, then they were more likely to be homesick. So by orienting them at the beginning with a brochure or whatever, or calling them, then they're going to be a little bit more in the know about how camp goes down, and hence they're going to be a little bit less afraid. One more is to integrate. Immediately integrating your campers into camp gives them a good first impression of camp, gets them psyched up, and gives them a sense of control. It's uncomfortable to be clueless for very long. To enhance integration, introduce campers to one another, make sure schedules and maps of camps are posted in visible locations, and tell kids what's coming up next on the schedule. You guys will get asked 100 million times about the schedule. Like, what are we going to do next? What are we doing this? When's lunch? Blah, blah, blah. And so if you have one in your back pocket, you'll be pulling it out a bunch of times. And it's really nice because it helps them like feel more in control, like they know what's going on. Cool. Other than that, you guys totally nailed it. Yeah. Cool. So intervention. Important ones here. Never tell campers that they can call home without administrative permission. It will make the homesickness 10 times worse. That's why we don't do that. Take special care to pay attention to how the camper is treated by the cabin. Do not let teasing persist. So if the camper is being teased, then it's obviously going to attribute more to their homesickness because they're going to be like, I'm going to be home, or I'm not getting teased. Provide social support. Homesick kids are lonely. Normalize their experience and empathize with their feelings. Don't let a homesick camper monopolize your time, but show you care. Set time limits at the start of your check-ins and encouraging homesick campers to get involved in all aspects of camp life. Try pairing them with a veteran camper who can also provide social support. So some of our campers will have been there for like since the very beginning, like 5 years. And so if you have a new person who is who's feeling homesick, feeling unsure, then you can talk to one of those returners, probably an older kid, and be like, hey, you guys can like help each other out. Assess coping. Learn how your homesick campers are coping by asking this simple question. Tell me other things you think or do to help make things better when you're feeling homesick. This tells you their coping method. To assess their coping goals, ask, and what did you hope might happen when you do those things? Help campers cope in adaptive, realistic ways. Remember replacement. If the coping behavior is maladaptive or somehow dysfunctional, maybe the opposite or something else will be more helpful. So we're going to talk about this in just a second, but one of the big parts of intervention is finding the ways to cope. We talked about coping via distractions, via all kinds of sort of different stuff. So these coping mechanisms, like before, there's like a huge laundry list of them, so we'll go over the most important ones. Promote a connection with home. Help campers write letters. Make time during their day for everyone to write. Give your campers a return address for camp so they can get a letter back. So yeah, having them write letters back to home will help them feel like they're still in contact and they can still talk to them. Encourage and follow up. To prevent rumination, what does rumination mean? That's just like festering on it? To prevent rumination, keep most of your conversations with homesick campers to a 15-minute maximum. Say, I'm certain that if you keep trying hard, you'll be less homesick by this time tomorrow. Let's check in then and see what worked best. For now, let's get to the next activity. Staying busy is one of the things that helps most kids feel better. Of course, don't forget your follow-up meeting with that camper in 24 hours. So this is kind of how we talked about the top 10 and the bottom 10% get 90% of the attention, right? So if you have a camper who's really homesick, it'd be really easy to give all of your attention to that person all day long. But there are a lot of campers, and some who might not be as outwardly showing it, but might be just as homesick, who also need your attention. Analyze coping. Is your homesick camper coping by trying to change something that they cannot change? Or have they given up completely, thinking that nothing will help? The most effective way to cope is to adjust the things you can't change, such as actual length of a session, and change what you can, like whether you participate in activities or not. It works, but it takes time, dedication, feeling better, and your health. That makes sense. Just change what you can. Don't worry about what you can't. Teach coping. Here's what kids say work best. Doing something fun to forget about homesick feelings. Doing something like writing a letter to feel closer to home. Talking with someone to help them feel better. Thinking about the good side of things, activities and friends to feel better. Thinking that camp is actually pretty short to make things go by faster. You know, it's just a week. Trying not to think about home and loved ones to forget about homesickness. Thinking about loved ones to figure out what they would say to help. Things that don't work, wishful thinking, giving up, getting mad, and running away. So yeah, just those things are camper proven methods. So you guys will watch EOTs on homesickness. So that's the reason I didn't go through all of these, because you guys will read all of these or see all of these. Awesome. Last things. Homesickness club. So what you can do with a kid, and this is actually a pretty cool idea, I haven't heard about this, is if someone's being homesick and they're like kind of longing for a community of friends, right? And so you can invite them to be initiated into the homesickness club, where what you do is you tie like a little piece of string onto the shoelace or something, and then everybody who's in the club has that little string on their shoelace. And so if they're feeling homesickness, then they can look around and see all the kids who have it on, and they will know. And you can never talk about it. It's a really secret club, so you don't tell people like, oh yeah, I'm part of this sweet club. But they can just look and see, and they won't feel as alone. And that's actually all that I have. So I'm gonna go down and get the pizza, and I think that lunch break starts right now. Cool.